Hey, tonight's shave is going to feature, have I even used, I think maybe once or twice I've used this knot. This is a premium knot from Golden Nib. Yeah, I have used this knot. So I'm looking forward to doing it again. It's one of my favorites so far. The knot that I got in that is just, this is kind of an inexpensive badger to have. And this one's more expensive. And the key is the tips are just crazy soft. A lot of density, good or bad, depending on your preference. But a lot of backbone. It stays, it kind of holds its shape more so than knots like this. My whipped dog knot, almost toward the floppy side, many would say floppy. And so I contrasted my whipped dog by alternating days with this Declaration B5 knot and my whipped dog Silvertip. And so then I basically learned that I probably preferred this one a little better. And so let's, because of the whipped dog was just so, it was very light and I enjoyed that aspect about it. I liked that it didn't shove my face around. However, it would just widen out and kind of stay that way as I was trying. Now, when I switched to painting, it was wonderful. But in terms of the display, when I had it kind of pressed into my face, it felt better than this one. This one's much more difficult to display. But even with this one's firmness and hardness, difficulty to display, I probably chose it better because what I wanted was something in the middle. You had this one, and then you had the whipped dog at either end of the spectrum. So let's see where this guy falls. So I'm going to alternate every other day with the Declaration and then the Golden Nib. They have two Silvertip knots, and this is the premium, the softer one with probably a little less backbone than the grade A, but I have a grade A as well, and the backbone seems pretty much the same. So let's just see what happens. So I'm going to do like I always do with my badger knots. I tried it both ways with just kind of rinsing the knot. I prefer a soak in a cup like this. It is optional. Try it both ways, see how you like it. Just my usual disclaimer. I don't want people to think you have to soak a badger knot. This is the blade. So today is, if you can count, the 45th use, because I have logged 45 on this Gillette Nacet. And we're going to use the soap I used last night. The Pere Lucien Cologne Fougere. And it's a great example of like a fougere or a fern type scent. And if you like that genre, this is good stuff. You'll probably enjoy it. It was a little kind of high in the nose, if that's even a way to describe it, for me last time. So I am going to try it again. I'm also going to try it again mainly and use less soap, because I used about a quarter of a teaspoon last time and it was too much. Most artisan soaps that I use, Holy Cow, Barrister and Man, you know, those types, they need the full quarter teaspoon in many cases. I use a full quarter teaspoon with this guy and yesterday, and I had so much soap, I think it got in the way of me making a good lather. It was hard to kind of beat it down. You know, I think I probably still have a little too much. So let's just kind of keep paring it down. I mean, really, people, I had tons. So, so let's just, there we go. I don't think that's an eighth of a teaspoon. It's probably somewhere in the middle of an eighth and a quarter. And so now I will take my lather bowl, hook out the little piece. You know what we can do, just to give you an idea of what it's like. I can, and this is, this piece is very much like Play-Doh or something like that. I can wad it into a ball, and then we can get an idea as to the volume. So I would say this little ball of soap is around 9 millimeters in diameter. It's my guess. And so if you have been around shaving, wet shaving for very long, in many cases, it says to use about as much soap as an almond. And if I kind of pinch the ends, and yeah, it's the size of a small almond. So let's just give it a shot. We'll hope it's not too much again. I put in like 4.5 teaspoons of water. It did get too thin. I was hoping that it would thicken up, and it didn't. And I was just guessing that maybe I just put in so much soap that it got in its own way in terms of kind of beating that airy lather down. With Williams soap, you get an airy lather, but you just have to keep mixing, and you'll get to a good spot if you have enough lather on your brush. And I was wondering if this was the same way, but it never came together. So, and these containers here are sturdy, pretty cool. The Badger has had time. Now, before I start mixing, as usual, I'm going to rinse my face. I have hard water. And it is cool. That's just to get my face started with getting my hairs wet. Oh, the razor for today. Wolfman WR1. This is the solid bar, 0.67 gap, which is 1 tick above the standard gap. It does have that Nacet inside. Let's just check to be sure. I'm certain it does, but just look. Yep. Gillette Nacet. Okay. I'm going to sling most of the water out of this brush so that we start on it with just a damp brush. And it's starting with kind of airy right away, no problem. Go ahead and throw half a teaspoon in there. Sometimes if you get an airy lather, you can slow down your brush mixing, and that can help to put a few less air bubbles in there. I'm going to go ahead and add some more water. I did have a bigger brush last time. Since that can hold some of the lather, that might say that I need even less soap this time. Yep. Since it's kind of a new-ish knot, I'm not going to be surprised if we have bristles that come out. There's another one. And let's put in another. We got 1.5 teaspoons in there. Now, it's one of the reasons I shake the water out of the brush, so that I can get good, more objective measurements. If you leave a certain amount of water in the brush, then if you have a bigger brush next time, then that's a different amount of water in there, isn't it? That's 2 teaspoons. And the lather's just kind of coming right up. You look at the structure there. You see how kind of weird looking it is with curves and all that. It's too dry. Definitely needs more water. So let's just, but I'm also trying to kind of beat it down into something more creamy. Another hair. Let's refill my water syringe here. Half a teaspoon. Plenty of lather is going to be available, I can tell. So I'll show you a little bit about it. Parts of it seem a little airy, parts of it are getting thicker and better. So we'll just keep kind of adding water. First time I used Pere Lucien, I was using Oud Santal, and I don't recall having this kind of issue with it. Ah, yes. Yes, it's looking much better. Starting to look a lot more creamy. Now take a look. I don't know if you'll be able to see the difference. It is a little moonscapey in there, and that's okay. I think I'm going to need to keep adding water. I'm really kind of mixing just with my brush tips now. I'm doing much less of a splay down in the bowl. I think that probably helps this situation a little better. Yeah, that's starting to look better. Now, look at that top part. Can you see, notice the texture difference from what I showed you before? Smoother. The hills and valleys are smoother and more graceful. Looking more like something creamy and not something that's full of air and needs to be shaped and hydrated and all that. But again, tons of lather in this thing. No choice but to get my hand down in there and get dirty. All right, now is the time where I'm going to do some finger checks. Let's get a little bit more. I think I can spare it. The cushion is light. I definitely feel my finger, the ridges of my fingerprints. So this one is not giving me a creamy lather quite so much. All right, let's just go ahead and shave with this and see what happens. All right, get my face wet one more time. Just a little bit, not too much extra drips and stuff on there, since this may be kind of a thin lather. Well, I don't know yet. Ooh, nice soft feel. Kind of like the whip dog. Then let's open it up. Ah, yeah, see? Some of the hairs spring back. They're not all left open, kind of like the whip dog was yesterday or the day before. So this has a little bit more backbone, and that's currently what I'm looking for. One day of growth, all we're dealing with here. Okay, now what I always say is look at the furrows on my neck after a swath like that. These are fairly consistent. You got the big wet edges on the top and bottom, ignore those, but look right in the middle, right there. Fairly consistent. We can do it again and just see. Yep, let's go for it. And look, see, it's kind of thinning out in certain areas. So let's make sure we get, this guy is not behaving as nicely as many other soaps. He's kind of being finicky like Williams. And to be honest, I'd rather pay $1.50 and have a finicky soap than what this French soap cost. I am so glad that I buy them used. Recently, I was in the Dollar Tree and I just grabbed a little soap. I guess it's a soap dish, and I'm using it to hold my brush. Keep it from like touching the sink surface. And it's quicker just to lay it down in that than it is to try to turn it over and balance on its back. All right, let us begin the 45th use. 45th is another fine caliber of weaponry. It's an old blade. It's not pulling. I mean, as I pull it along this 1 day growth on pass number 1, this is as rough as it's going to get, and it's not rough. As I'm pulling down, it's not tugging. It's not painful, uncomfortable. I just have it's given me the blade feel of maybe a Gillette New, as I recall. Yeah, Gillette New. Vintage razor. Nothing, it feels consistent. I switched to a newer blade a few days ago because this Wolfman is a new razor to me, and I kind of expected it to be nicer, but all because I'm seeing how far I can take this Nacet, I just kept using the Nacet with the Wolfman. And so all my experience with this razor was with a blade that was way out of range for most shavers in terms of number of uses. So I switched back to a Gillette Silver Blue with just a few uses. Oh, shaved like a dream. So I think this is a good gap for me. All right, there we go. I'm going to rinse this off. Not a creamy or slick feel to it. It does seem like it's protecting my skin, nonetheless. It's just not leaving very much there in terms of residual cream or slickness. So let's just go at it again. Very light feeling. The Declaration brush, the B5. is much more present on the skin, a lot more pressing. It is softer in terms of the tips, but because this one has less backbone, it kind of makes up for that, and this feels softer on the skin. I do feel some of the needles. It's not unpleasant, probably just needs to be kind of worked at a little bit more. So the tips are not as soft as the B5 tips. That would be a feat difficult to accomplish. Trying to leave a little, well, it's getting hard to leave nice thick lather. Might have to modify my process to get to a creamy lather with this guy. Might be a good study. All right, first do some internet research, see if other people can do it or if other people are having problems too. Maybe save yourself some work. Now, even with this 45 use blade, this second pass is very comfortable. Easy cutting. And I need to remember to switch directions and come from the bottom here. It helps me to cut just a little better in this trouble spot area right there. Skin feels pretty protected despite the fact that I'm not really feeling a lot between shaves with my hands. And I just rinsed. So let's load up the brush for pass number 3, and I still am going to have plenty of lather. Goes to show you how much extra I had the other day. Should be a 22 millimeter knot here, and I'm really glad for that. That size seems about right for me for most silver tips. I don't set my knots deep into my handles. I want to keep the center kind of out so that it can dry properly and I won't have any mold problems over the years. There we go. About as good as it'll do. Third pass promises to be smooth. If this guy feels a little too aggressive, I've discovered the best solution is to open the handle angle. If I was up here and it was too aggressive, open it up just a little. I'm exaggerating, but just a little bit, and you can feel it, at least I can feel it getting more comfortable and smooth. As you can see, I'm holding it very lightly. Not having leverage on it is a good thing, so that if I run into a bump, the razor can move instead of me forcing it into my skin with more power and force. Don't want to do that. That's how to get a good shave, as well as how not to generate a bunch of irritation. So here, this 45 use blade is shaving me now with no irritation, even without a great creamy lather. go. Three passes down. Go ahead and look at my zone here. Oh, that's really done quite well. I'm going to go ahead and do a pass anyway because I've got tons of lather. I'm going to rinse. So when a soap is like this and not really providing very much slickness, make sure that you only shave where there's lather, because it's not being quite as protective as other soaps. And there we go. Almost the right amount of soap, actually. I like to have a little bit left over in my bowl, like one extra pass left over, just for kind of safety and margin. If I screw something up, I know I've got a little bit left. So this soap may just need an 1/8 of a teaspoon instead of a 1/4, which is kind of cool, because then, you know, let's say it's a $30 soap, but if you use if you use half as much, and a $15 soap, you know, you have to use twice as much, then it all equals out. So that's pretty cool. So it starts out to be kind of an expensive soap, and it turns out, when you really look at all the facts, that it's not. There we go, an irritation-free shave on the 45th use of a double-edged blade. Pretty neat. Definitely the farthest I've taken one, by far. Okay, so I took a look at everything, and I see just a few hairs that have a little bit of length on them, and most of the problem area hairs have just been taken down nicely. So it's an above average shave. Again, no irritation. Don't feel anything. Feels great. Do I see any redness? I mean, maybe just a tiny bit, but it sure doesn't feel like anything. Very good. Very good. 45th. 45. All right. I'll be back. Let's do the post shave now. I haven't used this one in a while, and it's actually, in terms of the ones that aren't really, you know, kind of scented with a sophisticated scent, this is Nivea Original Post Shave Balm. I like it. One reason I like it is because it's got a lot of nice hydrating properties, good ingredients, but it's got a little bit of alcohol in there. The sensitive skin version of this same thing is what I started out with, and I used it for several months. But I don't actually have sensitive skin, at least not too sensitive. And it doesn't have the alcohol, and I kind of like the fact that this does, because then I can tell how well my shave went, and a little bit of antiseptic properties there. And right now I got 0 stings. So what that tells me is that my technique is really good right now with this blade. The lather may have felt airy and bubbly. Like you can kind of see some of the bubbles and stuff in that top part there. But here's the main part of what I was using. And I guess just because it doesn't feel too slick to the touch, just because it doesn't look creamy, luxurious, and it doesn't feel luxurious and creamy, but it can still be highly functional and take and this is not a mild razor head. Oh, and by the way, this is the Italian Barber radio knob handle, stainless steel. I think it matches the look and size and everything of this very slim Wolfman head. But what was I talking about? Oh, what I was saying was that the lather had a job. It had a couple of things against it. Number one, it had an aggressive head. It's not super aggressive, but it's more aggressive than average. It had an old blade working against it that, you know, younger ones definitely work better in many cases. And so it had those two things going against it, and yet here I stand without irritation. So very good, and I don't know, I'll have to ask around to see if that's about as good as people are able to get with it. See if they're able to get creamy with it. Maybe I'll do a puck load with the brush inside the puck instead of just hoking a sample out. I don't know if that makes a difference. I haven't tried that enough to see. Maybe loading with warm water, but I don't think that usually makes too much of a difference. So anyway, it protected my skin very well, and I'm feeling good. I got no stings when I applied that aftershave, so very nice, very nice. It's got a nice manly smell, kind of generic manly smell. So the Sella post-shave balm, I got some of that down here. I really like the scent on this one, but my wife says it smells like her grandpa. She loves her grandpa, but I want her to do things to me that she would not want to do to her grandpa. So I really like it, and it works really well. And here's the thing. She could still smell it when she got her nose close to my skin. Like 10, 12 hours, 10 or 12 hours later, she could still smell it. And a lot of times a balm is not usually supposed to provide that kind of scent, you know, for that long. So there's something there for your little information. If you think you might want to try that particular balm and do happen to like that scent, then it got a little bit of staying power. So that's cool. All right. Yeah, face feels great. Shave looks good. 95% baby butt smooth without going against the grain on my cheeks there. Very, very happy with the shave. And with how much water do we use this time? 3.5 teaspoons. I was on a thin line. I could have stopped half a teaspoon or even 1 teaspoon earlier, but the lather just looked too dry. And it needed to be able to stick to my skin to protect it. And so if I would have stopped earlier, I feel like I would have had to add water to my brush anyway. I would end up with kind of blotchy areas of the skin. So I feel like I probably made the right move, and with the 3.5. So I will just let that be the value that I record and maybe try to stick with next time. But I will do some research online to see if anybody's had any luck or if it does anything different to lather Pere Lucien. This could be a different base. This could be an older soap base that they later went on to improve, because I definitely didn't have this kind of trouble with Oud Santal, another one of theirs. Also notice, if you find one of these, 200 grams, 7 ounces. Most of the American artisans are distributing about 4 ounces at a time. This is almost twice that. And so consider that. If you consider that as well as the fact that you can use half as much, then you it might start to look a lot more like a good deal instead of something that's luxurious. But I will always buy it used anyway. Why not save a ton of money? One thing I liked about this shave was because I lowered the soap amount used, I was able to have a little bit lighter of a scent. And I did like that with this one. It's kind of a high scent, like I told you about, kind of green, ferny, grassy, and I'm sure it's got some other pieces to it that someone with a finer nose might be able to identify. You could definitely search online and find out what they are. I don't think it's a feminine scent. It was much more manageable and enjoyable in a lighter state. So dividing the soap in half, or whatever I ended up doing, reducing it by a third, helped to have a better scent strength that I personally liked. I do think it's a masculine scent. It's within the masculine realm, probably the unisex realm. I don't think it's feminine, and that's one of the reasons I enjoy it. So that's cool. I think we're pretty much done. I've packed everything away. I told you how much I enjoyed the shave, the performance of the razor. The soap, while still airy, did its job. The blade is just still kicking. For 30 shaves now, it has pretty much stayed. Within maybe the first 10 shaves it was here, it dropped down, and it's pretty much stayed at that maybe 90% effective, 95% effective. It stayed at that state now for 30 shaves or so, which I think is remarkable. And I think some guys, when they see that initial drop, they think, or when they feel it happen, where it's not quite shaving as well, that's when they pitch a blade. Now, I haven't experienced any tugging or anything negative that would make me pitch the blade, and unless I'm just right near the 100, if it does start being uncomfortable like that, I'm going to pitch it and just stop, and that's how far it went. But I think a lot of people feel that degradation, but it's so slight, and I'm still getting great shaves. But on the other hand, it's like a 10-cent blade. So when you feel that if you just always want to live in that first 10 days or so, I'm not going to tell you not to do that. It's just a 10-cent blade, But you don't need to in many cases. If your technique is good enough, just keep on rolling with it. I believe some of the guys who've taken blades longer have said that it's really more about technique than the tool, not necessarily a certain kind of blade. So don't go out and buy a Nacet, which is what I've been using, and think that that's the secret to getting long life out of your blades. There are some that can't make it. The quality's just not there. But there are a bunch that have, and we found about 8 of the popular ones. And it's one of those things where if you were going to go online, like tryablade.com, look at that top 10 sampler, any of those in the top 10 that you find that are comfortable for you to use are probably going to be good enough to make it to, if your technique is good, to make it to a pretty high number. So here we are, new territory every day. Nice to switch back to that Nivea Balm. It's comfortable, and I do like I have oily skin, so that little bit of alcohol that's in there does help me with that just a touch. Well, I think that's good enough. I hope there was something in here for you that helped you out in some way. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Take care and good night.